What's up, motivators? It's Demetrice and Anika here with Clair Em Motivators. And we are back with your weekly dose of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement. We hope you all had a great week last week, and we're excited to dive into the topic for this week. But before we start, we just wanted to acknowledge, politics aside, that history was made yesterday when Kamala Harris was elected as the first female, the first Black female, the first biracial female, the first female of South Asian descent. She was elected as Vice President of the United States. And that is huge. Like I said, regardless of who you voted for or what your political beliefs or affiliations are, it is huge to see a woman make it to that level of leadership in the United States of America. And so that got Anika and I talking about the importance of diversity, and specifically as it relates to women and women who make it to leadership positions. And so we wanted to talk about that with you all today. And so what we're going to do is share our personal experiences. For those of you who this is your first time watching, Anika is a physician and I am an attorney. And as we were talking about this topic, we realized that we both could relate. And so we wanted to talk about that and then provide everybody out there, especially women who are seeking to go into professions where they are underrepresented, whether that's Black, female, or whatever race you are, just to give some tips that we've learned throughout our careers. And so Anika's going to start us off and share her personal experience with becoming a physician.
Hello, everybody. Um, so I've talked about this before on a couple of the videos. I think I've even written about it because it was something going through the process that I don't even think it's not until it was all said and done and you kind of look back and think, wow, there's a lot of spaces that I have been in where I have been the only woman, the only Black person, gender and race. It is in medical school. So college for me was diverse. I went to University of North Texas, and so that wasn't quite a big difference from going from high school to college. I did have an incident in college where I've always said it was a pivotal moment in my life because I was shell shocked because I was the only Black female. So I wasn't the only woman, but I was the only Black woman. There was a summer program that I had gone to for students that wanted to go to medical school. It was a program that was at UT Southwestern, and so this was my entering into my sophomore year in college, where we went and we stayed for 6 weeks together. And I've often told Demetrius that it was the first time I had ever walked into a room where I was the only Black person in the entire room. And so it was something that was definitely uncomfortable. It was something that was definitely outside of my comfort zone. I had never been in that situation before. Now that kind of laid the groundwork because, like I say, it shell shocked me. But once I was able to kind of gather my thoughts and get through that 6 weeks, then after that, I don't think it did not shell shock me as much. Medical school I went to UT Southwestern. It's probably a 230, 250 students. At UT Southwestern, you were all grouped together. So it was about 12 of us that were me, myself, I'm African American, Black, but you had Ethiopian, you had from Africa, Nigerian. So we were all grouped together
So you
in
mean like
one,
Black was grouped together with African,
or
African American?
yes, yes. So people whose skin tone looks like mine or some shade of mine were grouped together, and it's about 12 of us. But within that 12 of us, like I say, there were, I'm Black from the United States of America, but there were Ethiopians, they were African. So 12. So it was 12 of us that was some shade of brown, and that's it out of a class of 250 students. So my first and second year, we all go to class together. So it's not like college where you go to different courses throughout the day. In medical school, you do go to different places. You go to the same class, different professors come in. And so we were all in the same class. So you had 12 people kind of scattered throughout the classrooms. But it wasn't until third and fourth year where now you go out inside of the hospitals and you go on your rotations. So on your rotations, that's when the game changes, because now these 12 people where you kind of see some representation that looks like you, they were female, they were male, but they were some shade of brown like me. When you get inside of these specialties, I mean, when you get inside of the residency and you're rotating through the specialties, all bets are off. So those 12 of us are kind of dispersed. I don't think I had a rotation with any of those 12 the whole 2 years where we did the rotations. But there is where you definitely do not see yourself. And sometimes that means you don't see yourself as a woman, because in medicine, some of these specialties are male driven specialties. I mean, and it is not very many practicing female physicians, no matter what your color is, that's in these specialties. So you get on these rotations, and it's not uncommon for you to be the only female, black or whatever color. And so that's where you see the most, where you're not represented in that regard. And then in residency, so I'm family practice. My residency program at John Peter Smith it's one of the larger family medicine residencies, and so it was about 23 people per class, and it's or per year, and it's 3 years. So it's about 60, 70 people. And out of the whole 60, 70 people in residency, I saw more representation as a woman. So there was more representation, females in the family medicine realm. So I did see a little bit more women, but still, with black women, I think in my year it was three of us, 3 out of 20, and so that's pretty good, because in some of the years above us, there was the year before me, there was just two black males. There were no black females. And then in the year before that, I believe there was one female. And then I remember coming up behind me, because you mentor, they'll link you together and you mentor residents coming in behind you. There was a few African American women there. So, like I say, you do see a little bit more representation as far as women, but still, color wise, it's not always a black woman it is that you see. And then
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then now in practice, that's a different story, because now when you're in practice, my partners, it's not it's it is I work in an area that is predominantly African American, and so a good deal of my patients are African American. We have another African American physician. We had a nurse practitioner whom was African American. My office is all women, and so represent as far as women goes, we got you there. We are all women of all different shades, all different colors. So my office doesn't look like the norm, which is nothing wrong with that. But in my role, I am in a leadership role at my office. And so then that means I have to leave outside of my bubble at times and go over to these meetings. And at the meetings, that is again where it kind of reminds me back in medical school and residency, where you're not always represented. There are women there, but not all the women look like me.
Well, just to tie it to something that you just said about the importance of diversity, especially in leadership, I know that you chose the office that you work in and the demographics intentionally
Mhm,
because as a Black female physician, you wanted to serve patients who look like you and you
mhm,
wanted those patients to see representation that we are in medicine, not a lot. And by we, I mean y'all, because I am not a physician. But that was intentional and that was a way for you to sort of give back to the community. And like I said, be that representation. And you understand your patient's issues in a way that someone who's not from the same different demographic might not. And then you said that when you're going through it and you're thinking about medical school and you're thinking about residency, you are the only African American person or African American female, sometimes only African American person. But life is also happening, right? Like you can't drown in or
mhm,
be lost in that fact. You notice it. You can't allow it to shake you because, like I said, life is still happening, right? Like you're getting married, you're having children,
mhm,
you have bills. You know what I'm saying? Like life is still going on, and so as heavy as that sounds, that I am here and it's just me, you really don't have room to carry that like as a burden or like not
Oh yeah,
going
absolutely. So the first time where it actually shook me, and the last time was when in college, when I went to that summer program. And like I say, that was a pivotal moment for me because I was out of my element, but after I gotten over that shell shock, I can't go through life every time I'm the only one in the room being
right,
shell shocked.
right,
And I am here because I'm supposed to be here. It's not an
right.
accident. I am here on purpose. So, however you got here, I worked just as hard to get here. And so then it's something that I've embraced. It is something that I notice, but it is not. It's I notice it because it's noticeable. Let's just say
Right.
that. You understand. I understand what I am seeing around me. But I do not, and even still to this day, I do not let that, it doesn't bother me. It's something that I've embraced because yes, I'm the only one, but so what? Hey, good morning. I'm Dr.
Hello,
Ramos.
right. I
What are
am
we doing
here.
today?
Right. And that makes you an asset. So I think that's great. And I do think there is a switch that happens after you come up for air, just in general, for anybody, any race who goes to medical school, law school, whatever. It's not easy and it's not for the faint of heart. And when you kind of come up for air and you realize that you did it, and then you kind of add like, and I'm a Black female and I'm looking around and people don't look like me, you recognize, or when certain situations come up and you understand things in a way that other people can't, you realize that that makes you an asset. So I think that's great. We're going to give some tips towards the end of the video, but a lot of what she just said are the tips that you own that and that you embrace that and that you allow that um, to make you an asset, because that's exactly what that means. So it's crazy that you say, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, we're sisters. I was there when you were going through all this, but I never recognized how much our experiences mirrored, because it's not like we were talking every day
Yeah.
about like what we were actually going through. So I went to a predominantly white undergraduate university, and that was the first time that I had experienced being the only Black person like in a class. And that happened quite often. And the school that I went to, a lot of the kids that went there, like I said, was predominantly white, but they were also very wealthy and they came from families that had a lot of money. And so I felt it not only in terms of race, but I also felt it in economics, the conversations that they were having, in the cars they were driving. I remember we would come back to class from summer and they would ask everybody what they did this summer. Well, my summer, I hung out with you 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then you had people that were like, oh, I was in Rome, or oh, I went to Italy, or oh, I'm from what's that, Laguna Beach. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, where am I? And so it was a little isolating. And then for you, you said you had experiences that really kind of shell shocked you, that stuck with you. I had a couple of those as well. One of them you actually think is funny. And then the other one, I don't know if I ever told you this. So the first one, I was in a class. It was like a wellness class, almost like PE. And there was this guy. I'm not really sure where he was from, but I know he was from another country and he was not African or African American, but I'm not really sure where he was from. He started calling me Shaniqua. I did not know
Oh
him.
my gosh.
We were not friends. We were not cool. I mean, I have no idea. And it was like we would have to sign in at the front of the class, at the beginning.
Yeah.
Be like, "What's up, Shaniqua? Ha 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 ha." And so
That's rude.
for a couple of times, I didn't say anything. I didn't laugh. I didn't smile. I didn't say anything because I'm like, I'm confused. Like, what is happening? And then the last time that he did it, he said, "What's up, Shaniqua?" And I said, "You know what? F you. Now don't handle it like this." And at this point in my life, I would have handled it differently. But in the moment, that's what jumped out of my mouth. And I remember getting in trouble. The professor heard me say that. And she was like, "You got to go." And I was like, "Ma'am, he's been calling me Shaniqua for the past like 3 weeks." And at that point I had told him like, "Hey, that's not cool. Like my name is Demetrice. That's, you need to stop calling me that." And then he was
You
like,
told
"Okay."
him that first
I
before
told
F
him
you.
that first.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Before I just said F you, just let me clear that up. Before I just was like F
Yeah.
you. I said, "Hey, that's not cool. Like my name is Demetrice. What? That's not funny." And then he goes, "Ha ha, okay, Shaniqua." And then that's when I was like, "You know what? F you."
Oh, okay.
Um,
Absolutely. That was
right.
very
And so I
deserving.
feel
He was
like he
deserving of
earned
that.
every letter of the
Yes.
word that I gave him.
Yes. You should have spelled
But
it.
so, and I get she might have just caught the tail end of it. She was a white female. And I told her, I was like, "Hey, he's been calling me Shaniqua for 3 weeks. And like, it's just not cool." And she was like, "I don't care. You need to go." So I left, whatever, that situation ended. I got an A in that class, whatever. But I just remember feeling like I just told this teacher what happened to me and like she didn't even care. And this man has been calling me Shaniqua for 3 weeks. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So that was one experience where I was like, man, this is crazy. And then the other one, so my maiden last name was Walker. And a lot of times on paper, it would just say like Demetrice W. Where I had this professor that I went to her office hours, and she, at the end of it, she was like, what's your name? So I can make a note that we met. And she was like, oh, I know your name. It's Patrice, right? And I was like, no, it's Demetrice. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt because like Patrice, Demetrice, I was like, okay, she's
No,
not
okay.
confused. This professor is also a white lady. And so I was like, no, it's Demetrice. And then she was like, oh, last name Williams, right? And I was like, oh my God. Like, you just named me Patrice Williams, and that is nowhere near the name that my mother gave me. And so at that point, it's those things like microaggressions, like we've talked about, even though I just feel like that's not even microaggressive, that's just aggressive. Where you're making me feel like I don't belong here, or you're making me feel like I'm just a stereotype to you. Like you're my professor, ma'am. Like you're grading my work. You were supposed to be nourishing my mind and teaching me. But to you, I'm just Patrice Williams, even though that's not my name. So I made an A in that class too, might I
Yeah.
add. But I remember just being really like highly offended by that. But then you just kind of, no, for me, it became I'm gonna prove that I'm more than just a Shaniqua or a Patrice Williams. Not that there's anything wrong with people named Shaniqua or Patrice Williams, but I just, for them, it was like I just felt like I had something to prove, which, that's not okay. So anyway, so I graduated from SMU and then I go to law school. And it was the same like in medical school where they group you together by class. So we had what they call sections. And in my section, there was maybe like, I want to say less than five or less. I'm not for sure. I can think of three and then me. So we'll just throw one in for good measure. I think there was like five of us. A couple of them, I think all three of them actually had African, like they were second generation or first generation African students. Like I think one girl's family was from like Nigeria or something. One guy's family was from like Eritrea, which is also African. And then the other girl, I'm not really sure, but there weren't people from like inner city American places. So I felt like, okay, again, you're outnumbered. But these thoughts are not going through your mind as you're going through it. You just, at this point, it just kind of is what it is, right? It just
Yeah.
becomes fact. It just,
Yes.
this is just what it is. But I never really felt isolated or anything like that. And I think because law school is so hard and you're so busy that you don't really even pay attention to it. And then my husband was in law school at the same time, and he went to a predominantly Black university. And so I would actually hang out with him a lot and like his classmates. So it never felt like anything because I had him. And so then I graduated from law school, and then in practicing law, I have noticed that the profession is male dominated. When you start talking about like people in leadership roles, judges and stuff like that, it's typically more male. And then I think because I network and I see a lot of Black females, in my mind, I assume that we're everywhere. And it wasn't until today when we were talking, when I actually looked up the numbers, where I was like, wait, I didn't realize that we actually weren't as many as I thought we were. So for law, and I looked up Texas for law, it was 37% female and then 4.5% Black. That's not
That's
that
crazy.
much.
Oh no.
Like that's crazy to me. And then I looked up,
Considering Texas and how huge, how huge
right,
Texas, how many lawyers there are in Texas, and you
right,
only 4.5%
4.5%.
of that.
Right. And then I looked it up for doctors and I could only find the national statistic. It was 36% female physicians and then 2.6% Black.
Oh yeah.
That is crazy to me. And so I just feel like in hearing our experiences, which, like Anika said, you get to the point where you recognize that you are an asset because you can't help but recognize it. And then there are experiences that come up as you're practicing medicine or practicing law where you're able to, relate to certain situations in a way that your counterparts may not be able to. And so you really are an asset. And then this year, as we've been talking about race and race relations, it kind of comes to the forefront. And so we just wanted to, like I said, address the importance of diversity, especially when you start talking about fixing issues like systemic racism or disparities in healthcare. When you look at the numbers and you see how many of us are there, 3 point, what was it? 4.5% and 2.6%. That's not an issue that we're going to be able to tackle on our own, right? It's going to
No,
take,
and then let's be clear, because those numbers are who's in the profession.
right,
If you put who's in actual leadership positions to change for us,
right,
I'm pretty sure that number is very, 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 very small. So we're
right,
here, but we're not in necessarily a position where we could actually make a change. I don't want to say make a change, but we can actually put into lawmaking stuff so that you
right.
actually do make a difference.
Right. And that's a good point because it's like essentially, okay, we're in the door and it ain't even a whole bunch of us in the door.
Mm-mm.
But when you're talking about sitting at the table, the
Yes,
decision making
we're not
table,
even there.
we're barely there, you know? And
Yeah,
so it's something that, like I said, in Kamala Harris getting to the position that she's in and us thinking about our own experiences, where it really does light a fire in you to say, you know what? I'm about to pull my own seat up to this table because it's necessary. We as a nation, everybody, I hope, recognizes that we benefit when we're together and when we are working to tackle issues that affect all of us. These are not just female issues, these are not just Black issues. The things that we talk about affect everybody. And so we just wanted to offer some encouragement to people who are up and coming in these professions or any profession, whether you trying to be a CEO or own your own business or whatever it is, to keep going because we definitely need more women blazing the trail, more women making it to those leadership positions, more opportunities for people who are not, for males who, you know, white males. When you see um you know, women who are killing it, we need those seats at the table, right? And we're not asking anybody to give us anything. It's like you said, we earn this. I belong here. I did the same work that everybody else had to do to get here. They didn't give me extra points on the bar exam for being African American.
yeah.
I didn't take a different test, nor did you, to get licensed. And so it's not a lack of talent, it's not a lack of possibility, it's not a lack of ability, it's a
It's
lack of
lack of
opportunity.
opportunity. That's
Exactly.
all.
It's
It's a
a lack
lack
of
of opportunity.
opportunity. And so it just you know, we do our part, and I think Claire M is a way that we do our part because we speak at career days. We put ourselves out there to say, like, hey, look, young people from where we're from, if you've never seen a Black physician, here's one. If you've never seen Black attorneys, here's two. If you've never seen, for, you know, Gavino, a Hispanic person that's an entrepreneur, here you go. My brother-in-law Derek is an aerospace engineer, and so we're like, look, we exist, right? We're unicorns, but we exist. And so we just want to make sure that we are constantly doing our part. One of the packages that we offer for life coaching is to mentor people who want to be physicians or to mentor people who want to be attorneys, because that's the areas that we work in. And so just everything that we can to inspire that next generation of female leaders, we are all about that. And so just to jump into those tips that we have, the first one that I have is to be confident in yourself and to be confident in your abilities. I know sometimes it can feel isolating. I know sometimes it can feel like you don't belong. And we always talk about this. Diversity is good, but inclusion is better. Inclusion is the gold standard, right? You can diversify any space, but if the people don't feel like they belong there, one, they're probably not going to stay, or two, like, you're not going to get the best quality work from them because they don't even feel like they belong in the space. And so for us, it is to be confident in ourselves and to be confident in our abilities and to know, like you said, that we belong there, that we earned it, and that we belong there. Do you have anything to add to that one?
Oh, absolutely. And I absolutely agree. You know, if whatever you have to do, whatever your mantra is that puts you in that headspace. And I am not playing. Sometimes if I know I have a big meeting coming up, and like I say, I know I'm the only one at the table that kind of looks like me, do not get it twisted. I get nervous. But do you
Right,
know I'm nervous? Absolutely not. Because on my way to work that morning, I blast whatever my mantra. So I got me some Beyonce blasting, whatever it is that gives me that little fire to say, you know what, girl, you got this. And I
yeah,
go in
right,
there and I got this. So
right,
yeah, whatever your mantra is, remember we are our biggest cheerleader. So whatever your mantra is to get you going, you tell that to yourself, you write it on your mirror, you look at it right before you go in there because you deserve to be there. You wouldn't have been there otherwise, because all they're going to ever give you is an opportunity, never a pass. So if you
Right.
made it there, that means you deserve to be there.
Right. And it's funny that you say that because I actually have "You Got This" in a frame, like
Yeah.
right by my door. So every time I walk out of my office, that's what I see. I have like a cork board in my office, and one of the things says "Get it, girl," because it's just those constant reminders that, like, hey, I got this, and I'm about to get it, girl. So that's that. I think that's great. The other one is own the space that you're in. And I think that's kind of tied to being confident. It's like being
Hmm.
confident, own it, right? You're there, you've made it there. Even if you haven't made it there, you own the journey to getting there. And I think believing in yourself and being confident and owning every part of who you are, right? Self confidence, self worth, not listening to the people that say that women can't do this or that Black women can't do this or that. And you've mentioned this before when you first start telling people that you want to do something that hasn't been done before, or you want to do something that may not be common, you're going to have people say like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
you want to do that? Or people that, say, oh yeah, haha, that's cute. And they don't really believe in you. And so as long as you believe in yourself and you own that, that's 99.9% of the battle right there.
absolutely.
And I said, if they won't give you a seat at the table, just pull up a chair, right? Like you said, like we're not asking for handouts. We're not begging somebody to give us opportunities. The way I look at it is I'm going to be the best attorney, period. I'm not comparing myself to male, to white, to anybody else. It's just I am going to make sure that I know my stuff and I'm going to make sure that I am always giving the best effort that I have. And hopefully that'll be recognized. And for me, it has been. I have not, in the space that I work in, I have not felt like that wasn't recognized. And so I think, we can't be in spaces and then get complacent where we don't, you don't know the penal code or you don't know, I don't know what y'all's books are called, but like you don't know your stuff. I think that hard work speaks for itself a lot of times. And so you just got to make sure that you are always sharpening your iron. And then we already said this, you said this a lot, I'm gonna say it again. Understand that if you didn't belong there, you wouldn't be there. And so a lot of
Yeah.
times that feeling, even if it creeps up of like, man, and no one looks like me, it's like, okay, if I didn't belong here, I wouldn't be here, right? Like if God did not see fit for me to be here, I would not be here. So don't let those thoughts deter you or affect your actions or your attitude. A big one for me is find a mentor and be a mentor. So I think connecting with people who have done the same thing or have done something similar, people that you can trust, people that you can look up to. I have several mentors who have been practicing law for 20 plus years who I go to in those moments where I'm like, man, how did you get over this hump? Or how did you do this? Or hey, there's some complex legal issue that I really don't understand. Can you help me? Or sometimes it's just to connect and just she understands the experience that I have. And so I think that having a mentor is great. And I also think it's important for us to be mentors to other people because we can't do it alone. We have to band together and we have to connect. And that's Black women, white women, whomever, to connect with each other and continue to motivate each other. And I meant to say this earlier and didn't. But there's a special, being a parent or a mom in a career driven environment is also something that, we're talking about diversity and race and also in gender. I think it's important to connect with people who also have children because sometimes it can feel like, okay, well, everybody's going to happy hour after work or they're able to stay up later or stay at the office later than I am because I have to pick my kids up. Or an example for me, I breastfed both of my children, which required me to stop and pump every 2 to 3 hours regardless if I was in court, regardless of what was going on that day at work, I had to stop what I was doing because my babies had to eat. And so sometimes that can be a little, challenging and it's a lot happening. But I just looked up to women in my office, white women, Black women who had children and use them as inspiration and motivation and just thought, if she was able to do this, she has 4 children. I have two, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, and sometimes the value in it, because I've said oftentimes that there wasn't always footprints in the sand for me. I really did kind of, and sometimes I've ventured out and have done things that it wasn't any footprints. But a mentor doesn't have to be a person that is doing the exact same thing that you were doing, because the beauty of it is that as a woman, you can relate to me as a woman because you are a woman and you have kids and you have to get up and go to work. And so you're the person, if it's not a professional mentor, if there's not somebody, you may be the first one, because what we're saying is pull your chair up to the table, and you may have been the first one to pull your chair up to that table. Think about um, Vice President elect Harris. There's not a woman. She's the first one to pull that chair up to that table, but she can pull back. She can reach back and bring some of the women in her lives with her, the ones that you trust, the ones that you know, because no, you have not been in this exact situation, but you know me, and as a woman we can connect on what I'm going through. So it doesn't always mean that the person is doing exactly what you're doing. So, but reach out, like Demetrice said, you reach out to someone and then you reach back and you pull them up here with you.
I think to what you just said in terms of mentor, that's the role that you play in my life. And a lot of times as we're talking, working in two completely different fields, we relate and it's like we're not even doing the same thing. I am an attorney and you are a physician, but when we start talking about certain issues, I'm like, man, I see that same thing over here in law. And you're like, yeah, I see it all the time in medicine. And you saying you didn't have, the blueprint, but you were my blueprint, right? Like and I don't even know that you knew how much I was looking up to you, but it really was because I saw you go to college. I'm like, well, duh, I can go to college because someone who looks like me, who was raised in the same house as me, who, we're the same. She's doing it, so I can do it. And then when you went to med school, I was like, you know what? I don't really like science like that. And I really am kind of squeamish. So I'm not going to do that. But I can do what my skill set allows me to do. And there was never any question of whether I would be able to achieve because I was watching you do it. And because med school and residency takes so long, I actually ended up, you were still
you caught up with me
when I was graduating from law school. So,
yeah, you caught up with
me.
We
started going through it together at some point. But it was just great to have literally a sister there that was going through what you were going through at the same time that you could relate to. And so actually you took my next tip. It was surround yourself with supportive women, regardless of what profession they're in. If they are trailblazers like you, world changers like you want to surround yourself with people like that because you can feed off each other's energy. And then I have love and value yourself and blaze the trail. I mean, that's really what it is. If no one else sees your work, you always see it and you blaze the trail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even when it gets tough, because please believe, we don't want to take away that, yes, some days are better than other days, but it's the journey as much as the destination.
Right.
I can look back on all that I've gone through and I can appreciate the journey. Even though it wasn't always pretty, I can appreciate the journey. I wouldn't be at the destination if it wasn't for the journey.
Right. And for the men who made it all the way through to the end of this video, we see y'all. I think a lot of times when you start talking about like women empowerment and stuff like that, guys kind of, feel like this for y'all too, right? Because if y'all have opportunities, y'all can, move your seat over so she can pull her chair up. It's not to displace men. It's literally for equality, right? When you say 37%, then that means way more men are doing something that we're trying to do. And so like I said, it's not to, I always think, I hear this analogy all the time. It's like, it's not pie, right? We're not going to run out. You don't run out of it. It's infinite. And so just because we're saying like, hey, women, go and blaze the trail, we're not trying to run men over. We're just trying to fight for equality. And so with that, I hope you all were able to learn something from us sharing our personal experiences. If you're on your own journey, know that you are not alone. And like I said, my sister and I happily serve as mentors. We speak at career days. Anybody who ever asks us questions, I know I've sent people to you to be like, hey, my sister's a doctor, you can talk to her. And that was before we started Clair Em. And now, we actively market and actively coach people who are going through these very things, because our mantra here is that success isn't just about what we do in our lives, it's about what we inspire other people to do in their lives. And so we hope that because of the things that we went through, that we're able to pass the torch, or like Anika said, reach back and help somebody else on their journey to get wherever it is that you want to go. Well, with that, we hope that you all have a great week, and we'll see you next week for Motivation Monday. Bye.
Bye.